If in the past we doubted that economic growth was sustainable, now the mindset is very much different. Because of President Aquino's leadership, our faith in our capacity to build on our gains is very strong. His stewardship in pushing key reforms, fighting corruption, has earned the respect of the global community. If 2012 was a good year, 2013 promises to be an even better year. And joining us tonight is former Finance Secretary Ernest Leung. He is one of the members of the Foundation for Economic Freedom of the Philippines. It's a group of the best and brightest minds when it comes to the economy. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Freddie.
Sir, this is Robert Tan. Sir, just to start us off, in the past we doubted our capacity to overcome obstacles in our pursuit of economic growth. 2012 has proven that if our is led by a good leadership, we are capable in achieving success. How would you attribute the high growth rate for the Philippines in 2012?
Well, as you alluded to, the integrity of leadership has a lot to do with the attainment of the growth that we have been praised for, no? Because if you were to look at our countrymen, they're quite talented, gifted people. But if you have leadership that would misuse resources and set very bad examples of taking resources for their own sake, then these people will not be using their talents towards a improvement of economic activities. I think that's a very basic merit of this government, that they have set the right moral tone and leadership. And so many of the other things of our productivity is coming out and showing results.
So do you think that the trip of the President in Davos, Switzerland, in attending the World Economic Forum has put back the Philippines back in the map in terms of giving us more foreign investments?
I would say that he was invited because of the clear perception globally of the improvements in our country. And so I won't say that his trip was a cause of the interest of the world on the Philippines again. But of course, in going there, people will see him personally, interact with his cabinet, and therefore will get better and deeper perceptions of the policy makers, and they will reinforce their perception on the general basis to more specific people dealing with policies. So it's a good thing.
So with regards to the International Monetary Fund, it has projected growth between 5 to 6%. Can that be done? And which sectors of the economy will be seen to continue to grow?
That certainly can be done. And in fact, I think more can be done if we were to pursue certain policies which I feel has been somewhat underemphasized. And this is in the area of the exchange rate. We are a country with huge surpluses coming from our services and overseas workers, not from production of goods and exports. If we were to get our exchange rate to a more competitive level, then we will have both in terms of the gains from services as well as more goods for exports. And if you look at some of the other indicators of our situation on employment, we still have a relatively high level of unemployment, despite the fact that we have a strong surplus, and many of our people are abroad. That's because we don't have enough domestic activities, production, to generate employment opportunities. So we're moving in the right direction. That kind of growth of 5-6% is not that difficult to achieve. We can do much more if we use our exchange rate policy in a more competitive manner.
So with what we've seen last year and the projections this year, what do you think, what else needs to be done in order to create a better business environment here in the Philippines to attract more foreign investors?
Well, let me put it in a different way, Freddie, no? To attract more investments, domestic, foreign as well. It should not be a bias only for the foreign. It should be as much for our own. And what more should be done? I already have made reference to the exchange rate. Of course, there are other things which the government, under the leadership of the President, is pushing for in terms of the infrastructure side. There are areas in transportation, both sea, land, and air, and a lot of these things have to be given the highest of priority and done in a very efficient way so the resources are used properly. Some of the growth in the past was somewhat deceptive because they measure the investments by the amount of money spent. Mm-hmm. But what actually has been put into the investment is probably a fraction of what is spent. We all know about the overpricing in the Macapagal Avenue and all these kind of things, no? Mm-hmm. Today's world, I know the Secretary of Public Works has been very serious in terms of making every centavo count in terms of infrastructure spending. So the efficiency in the utilization of funds is another factor. Mm-hmm. Of course, on the revenue side, the people in finance have been doing very well, particularly our Internal Revenue Commissioner. Mm-hmm. He's been applying the tax laws as it should be applied, and that should improve our revenue sources. Mm-hmm. So the public sector is doing a lot of the things that should be done. They should sustain that. And I think the only area that needs to be addressed is the exchange rate, which is overvalued. Mm.
So you have mentioned infrastructure. It has been a major concern in the past, but now government is spending more. How important is the PPP program of the President in engaging the private sector to fill up the gaps in infrastructure, especially when it comes to major road networks and airports?
Well, these are some of the better ways of doing things. We have seen the partnership with private sector in major infrastructure undertaking, which addresses two aspects. One is the multiple in the resource mobilization, money coming from the private sector, and two is the technology and engineering side of the efficiency that the private can bring to the task. We unfortunately do not yet have the kind of public work that would be able to do the kind of efficiency in large projects that the private firms are able to do so. So that PPP is a very important part of the strategy of addressing the deficiency in the infrastructure.
So, and finally, sir, are you confident that this will be a better year, and can we sustain high growth rates until 2016?
I am confident that this government will continue to adhere to the policy of integrity. That's fundamental. Although I'm not very sure that this is pervasive, we already have seen some of the things that's happening even in the legislative body, to see those sort of distribution of the savings from maintenance operation expenditure. Why should that be distributed to anyone for 1 month left? That's money of the citizens. That should be saved. These are things that need more rigorous. I'm quite pleased to hear that some senators themselves are trying to go and correct these kind of things. Mm-hmm. So it is not just the executive side. It has to be all together with the legislative side being a proper model for the use of public funds, and of course our judicial to make sure that the decisions on law will all be correct. Mm-hmm. So we're moving in that direction. Mm-hmm. We could probably benefit much more if that is attained at more rapid speed.
Okay. On that note, sir, thank you very much for joining us tonight on NewsLife. That was former Finance Secretary Ernest Leung of the Foundation for Economic Freedom. Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye. Good night.